Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with Jaclyn Kawwas, head of commercial at Peak Health.
Welcome to Medical Spa Insider, the podcast of the American Med Spa Association. I'm Alex Thiersch. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to have the amazing Jaclyn Kawwas on the AmSpa video hotline today. And I got to tell you, Jaclyn, I was looking, as I mentioned before we went live, I love doing this podcast because I get to talk to such amazing people. I have to admit, it makes me feel a little bit inadequate about myself because everybody is so dang smart. And it seems as the industry grows, the people I talk to just get more and more brilliant. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and your bio, and from what I saw, it was biomedical engineering from Michigan, and then you got an MBA from Wharton. You've been involved in startups. You've got patents, I think I saw. And you look like you're about 20 years old. And so you're much more accomplished than I am and much younger. And that makes me feel like I just need to get back to work. So congratulations on all that and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
No, but it's awesome. Seriously. I mean, you've accomplished a lot, and we're here to talk about longevity, in aesthetics. Obviously, it's something that we're all talking about. It's a huge point of emphasis in med spas. People are adding in longevity medicine, hormones. They're adding in wellness. All of this stuff is kind of coming together in one bucket. And you've got a new startup that you're working on called Peak Health, which I want to get into and learn a lot about because I think it sounds really innovative. And again, one of the things that I think is cool about this industry is we find, especially lately with AI, we're finding so much innovation and so many of these new companies that are starting up. And I think yours is right there. But first, I would love to hear just a little bit about you and how you got to where you are and kind of, how you got into aesthetics in the first place, because this is an interesting industry.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been surrounded by healthcare from the Midwest, families in healthcare. It's kind of something, it's very common in Michigan. It was one of the career paths. So I was very interested in it in the beginning. I think I wanted to approach it more from the technology or creative side. And so that's why I kind of did a slight tangent, pivot, if you will, to do biomedical engineering. Because I felt that if I could design something or a device or technology that was super cool, I could have a larger impact at a bigger company. So I made the jump to move to California, worked for Medtronic, the big med device company in the cardio space. And so worked with a lot of different interventional cardiologists designing essentially devices if somebody has a heart attack that goes in the arteries. That's what I was working on. So very mad scientist, prototyping in the lab, getting into the weeds of it. Really liked it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I kept getting pulled to do a lot of the non-engineering things too, and getting closer to the customer, demoing things at conferences. And that's where I got interested in more the business and the strategy side of what we build next, as opposed to being the one to only create it. So I was kind of dabbling between the two different worlds. And that made me realize that I wanted to pivot to the business side, understand more business foundation. I also felt like software was the wave of the future, and med devices take like 5 years to get to market, whereas software, you can kind of spin it up ideally within a year to be able to get it to market faster. And I saw the wave of AI coming through and thought that could be applied to healthcare. So made the jump from West Coast to East Coast. That's where I did business school and really tried to go deep into a lot of different startups that were both, instead of just treating disease, which is what we did in the cardio world, it was more like, how do you manage disease? So I worked with a few companies in managing disease. And then I slowly moved to startups that were more about diagnosing disease and detection, and then more health optimization and prevention and longevity. So I feel like maybe it was more subconscious, but moved earlier on the spectrum of like where we are from like sick care to how do we get to more proactive preventative care, which I think is where a lot of consumers, individuals, patients, they want to go. And so that's kind of how naturally I landed into the longevity space. So I was before first employee at a gut microbiome company, and that's where I got exposure to like longevity, functional medicine, almost a cash pay concierge world of healthcare and consumer health, and would go to a lot of different events and conferences and just saw the world that was opening up of all the innovation, all the technology, all the tests, the diagnoses, and how people are moving into it, both consumers who want it, but also providers who are trying to get into it and move
Yeah.
away from the system and
Yeah.
expand their offering and start their own practice. And that's probably where I also got more exposed to med spas and aesthetics, because there's a lot of overlap at a lot of the
Yeah.
events that I went to, and saw the interest of, longevity isn't just, curing the inside. It's very connected to how you look and feel on the outside. And so to have like
Yeah.
a right approach for individuals, looking at it more holistically on the aesthetics and skin and the hair, but also improving your metabolic health, your sleep, your inflammation. It should be one system. So that's
Yeah,
how I
for
got into
sure.
it.
That's very interesting. Do you mentioned, and you mentioned this earlier before we went on, that you were the first employee, and I think you said you're the first employee at Peak Health as well. What does that mean? Is that what's the kind of the meaning around that? Like, other than obviously being the first employee, but what's kind of the importance of that and the impact of that?
Well, I think it's you start from scratch. So usually when I join, it's like an idea maybe in the founder's head.
Yeah.
It's not it's not finalized, and there's no playbook. So you're not trying to sell something that already exists. You don't even know who you're selling to. You don't know what you're selling per se. We're trying to go to market in a direct to consumer, but also work with businesses. You need to figure out like the economics and like how everything's gonna be priced, and how do you even create partnerships to bring a product to life. So I think what it means and what I like to do is kind of the context switching and being in multiple, plugging into multiple functions. And that's probably why I gravitated such early stage, because that way I can dabble in the financial and doing the budget, or the legal and doing, sales and partnerships. So I think it's multiple hats and navigating a lot of ambiguity.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So tell me about Peak Health. I was looking at it a little bit, and I know you're hopefully by the time this airs, you will be launched. Um, and it's an interesting platform that I think folks are going to be interested in. But tell us about what you do, and then specifically, you're a platform in the longevity health, and how do you define that? Let's start there, because that's kind of
Mm.
one way that I think folks need to get comfortable with, because med spas do aesthetics, but as we talked about, it's all blending into one thing. But there's definitely
Yeah.
separate lanes too. There's no question that there's separate lanes. So how do you define longevity, and then let's get into what Peak Health does.
Yeah, I mean, I think longevity is a spectrum. It's not like a defined definition in terms of what that, at least I believe, in terms of what that looks like. But
Hmm.
what peak came out was we noticed, and I saw this too in my last company. There's two ends of the spectrum. There's primary care, which you go for your annual visit, 10 minutes a year, 15 minutes if you're lucky, which is not enough if you're trying to understand if you're going through menopause, if you're gaining weight, if you're having brain fog, cognition issues, insulin. So it's hard to be able to get to the root of like understanding your nutrition, your diet, your sleep, and your hormones at a deeper level. It's just not enough
Hmm.
time. And a lot of providers honestly aren't trained to be able to help. And they're not incentivized either, just the way the structure is and the high volume and the throughput of patients. So because of that, you have a lot of individuals who are frustrated. And so they're buying a lot of these one-off supplements they saw online or on social media, or they're getting a fancy blood test that they think will reveal more information, but they don't really know what to do with it. So they're putting it in ChatGPT, or they're,
Hmm.
going to a functional medicine doctor as a one-off, but it's very piecemeal, fragmented, and it can get expensive. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have these longevity clinics popping up the past, I feel like 5-ish years, and they're usually in
Hmm.
bigger cities. Like you have it, I'm based in New York. They're in New York, Miami, LA, San Francisco.
Hmm.
They're not really nationwide. What's good about them is you go deeper into your health. So you look at a lot more biomarkers. You're doing bone density scans. You look at fat body composition. You're looking at your cardiovascular output. You're really getting to the
Hmm.
root cause, and you're spending a lot more time with the provider. But those clinics are, I mean, depending where you're located, but they can be 20, 30, 40K a year. And so it's not super accessible for the average or even above
Right.
average income person. And there's a lot of providers that want to get into it, but they are struggling because longevity isn't really defined. There's so many
Yeah.
different tests. It's overwhelming. There's new the diagnostic tests, protocols that are coming out, treatments with GLP-1s and peptides and supplements. It's overwhelming. And how do you put
Yeah.
that all together in a way that makes sense? and is
Well, and it's
efficient.
also, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's also like longevity is very much like aesthetics, and that there's not like a specialty you can go to medical school for and become board certified in longevity medicine, right? It's something you can have to get into and learn on your own.
Yeah, so you don't, there's not like classes in medical school. There are outside organizations and programs that have certifications. They have that for functional medicine. They have that, for example, like
Right.
the Menopause Society has, menopause certificate.
Yeah.
OPC has one. There is one for longevity as well, another organization. So I have that, but it's more like you have to on your own, pay for classes, do CME, do credits, get the training, and be certified.
Right.
But yeah, it keeps changing. Kind of the what that looks like, and there's new things that come out every day, so it's hard to keep up, and it's hard to, like, a lot of med spas are knowing that they want to get into it, their patients are asking for it. I think the days of just focusing on skin and aesthetics, I think, is more antiquated. People want to cure
Hmm.
holistically and be able to feel good on the inside and out. And so the
Hmm.
challenge is, like, how do you actually do so to do that? It's very complicated. I think I've seen a
Yeah.
huge trend of med spas adding weight loss is like the first step.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has added weight loss at this point. If
Yeah.
you haven't, it's
Yeah.
you're behind. Yeah.
So that's a big, GLP-1s. But just to add GLP-1s, it's not really the most comprehensive way to go about it. That's one
Hmm.
medication. But if you want to really do it right and do a comprehensive metabolic care,
Hmm.
what happens if people's muscle mass changes when they're on GLP-1? Like, a lot of women lose
Hmm.
muscle mass, their
Yeah.
fat body composition changes. You also want to understand where they're at from, like, their blood biomarkers and how they're performing that
Right.
way. You have to titrate dosage. It becomes more complicated. It might impact hormones. You also want to make
Yeah.
sure, like, if the people are just taking medication, but they're not changing their diet or their supplementation or their exercise plan, they might not be the most successful or do it in the right way. And so I think people
For
are
sure.
doing like a check the box, like, okay, I've added GLP-1s, great on longevity, but I really
Yeah.
think it's doing a disservice to patients who
Yeah.
want and deserve comprehensive care.
Hey, everybody, it's Alex Thiersch, and I'd like to thank our sponsors for this podcast, CallRail. A single missed call can cost your med spa thousands. You're not just losing a consultation, you're losing a high-value client and all their future business. That's why CallRail is the must-have lead engagement platform for med spa owners focused on profitable growth. Over 220,000 businesses trust CallRail to make sure every marketing dollar counts. CallRail transforms your front desk operations by identifying which channels bring in your highest paying clients, answering and qualifying calls even after hours, and automating routine tasks so your team can focus on what matters most. And because client trust is everything, CallRail's platform supports HIPAA compliance to keep your data safe and secure. It's time to stop leaving revenue on the table. CallRail is the solution. Get started with a free 14-day trial, no credit card required. Sign up today at callrail.com/AmSpa. So real quick, you mentioned functional medicine, because again, these are some of the terms that are being thrown around. We talk about them all the time in the med spa space. Functional medicine, longevity, wellness, right? All of these different
Mhm.
things. And so, like, longevity is referring to kind of whole body health. How is it different than functional medicine, and how do you draw that line, um, just so that folks kind of know exactly what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's also still a spectrum, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
I've
agree.
noticed a lot of clinics that were functional medicine clinics, I'm starting to see on the websites longevity now. So I think
Yeah,
it's a part of it is a business, buzzword, but it is a little bit of a spectrum. You see functional medicine trained and longevity trained, and
yeah.
flip-flopping. What I've noticed from going to all these events and kind of being into the weeds of this, I think the functional medicine, they focus more on, like, alternative therapies, a lot of diet, big on supplements, nutrition. They might do, like, herbals. They're really big on a lot of different tests, like understanding the root
Okay.
cause. So they're big
Yeah.
on gut microbiome, hormone testing, um, like mold toxicity, foods. That's very common in terms of how they're looking at root cause. That's a trend that I've seen there. They're probably less bullish on, like, the VO2 max, the DEXA, more the advanced, like, testing and therapies. I think that's more like the
Hmm.
longevity angle. So it's a little bit
Hmm.
different approach, but they tend to blend. And honestly, in a
Yeah.
couple of years, I feel like there'll be another term maybe it's precision care or something else will come up that is a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean, there's definitely pros to both approaches. I think understanding the root cause, not just, but also being able to do evidence-based and therapies that work, and then look at biomarkers and ranges that you want to get to versus kind of the
Yeah.
standard quo
Yeah.
in primary care.
So if someone's got a kind of your typical med spa, and there's really no such thing, but if you've got like, a med spa that's offering the aesthetic side of things, and maybe you've started offering GLP-1s or something like that, maybe you offer hormone therapy, but you're interested in getting into more of this. What's the problem? It sounds like the problem that you're looking to solve is access for patients as well as kind of training for providers. How do you come in, and what's the solution that you offer if you're pitching this to a med spa? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, what Peak noticed was that the fact that people are trying to do this, but it's challenging, both on not having the protocols, not having the infrastructure in place. Like, what pharmacy do
Hmm.
you go to fulfill medication? How do you get all the data in one place? Like, you have to have a lot of partners to do it, and it's like
Yep.
overwhelming. They'll take you like a year plus to figure it out. It's going to be a little bit piecemeal. And then you also have, because there's so many different testing and data and biomarkers, it takes a lot of admin and overhead time to read it, interpret it. How do you put it all together, and how do you make it a good experience for the patient? And so
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest challenges that I see. So what we built at Peak is the infrastructure to be able to like launch a longevity clinic or service within your practice. So if you're a med spa owner, maybe you're not clinical, you want to focus on the skin rejuvenation, you're good at it, that's your bread and butter, but your patients
Hmm.
want more and you want to be able to retain them and grow revenue. We have a whole service where we have clinicians too on staff that are trained in these protocols if they don't want to deal with the clinical part. But we have
Hmm.
different programs that incorporate everything from your DEXA, your VO2, your advanced blood work, your imaging, your wearable integration. All the results get plugged into one dashboard, and they have the ability to fulfill medication. So the full end-to-end experience from clinical infrastructure, tech integration, operations, like a plug and play ready to go to be able to offer to their patients. And we work with
Okay.
med spas to be able to drive revenue to the aesthetic side, which they excel in, and because we're all virtual, so having the aesthetics in person is a super good element of that. And so it's driving revenue on both sides, but ultimately being able to offer the service a lot quicker and a lot easier without having to buy all the machines, all the equipment, and hire a lot of
Yeah.
more people.
So and a lot of this comes from, blood testing, things like that. And then so like if someone was to come in, a med spa provider says, "Hey, we've got all these services." They take a sample. I guess they would send it off to you. The test would be, and how does that work? How's the interaction between the provider and you? And then how is that relayed to the patient? Is this all done through the provider, or do you guys come in through telemedicine or anything like that? And what's the process?
Yeah, so we're our own telemedicine,
Okay.
platform. So they would join Peak and they do one of the programs and go
Okay.
through all the different testing, the imaging, the blood work, the glucose monitor, all that in one place, and then be able to get medications, treatments, supplements, nutrition plan, whatever they need to be able to act on that. So they would essentially join the program and be able to get the care that they need.
Okay. So the patient joins the program, or the provider, the med spa joins the program. The patient does.
The patient does, and the provider would
Okay.
offer it as part of their of being a partner with
Gotcha.
us. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you're basically like an add-on to what the providers are going to be using, or are offering in their service. And then but there's no, you're not like a brick and mortar. You don't have like places where you go. This is all virtual.
It's all virtual, yeah. So we're nationwide. So we can work with a lot of med spas across the country. And so, yeah, it's all virtual.
Okay, I gotcha. Interesting. So, all right. So you're adding this longevity component, kind of like, we're seeing with the hims and the hers and all the things with the new meds that are kind of telemedicine wise, where they send it. And so you guys can come in and do all the testing, do all via telehealth, and then fulfill the prescriptions, so that it's just, but it's a separate provider relationship, meaning they're not working through um the med spa provider. So the med spa provider doesn't even necessarily need to learn all of the longevity medicine side, right? Is that right?
Yeah, so they want to offer it, but they don't want to like focus their energy on it. They don't
Gotcha.
feel equipped, or maybe they're not a PANP or MD, but they're esthetician or owner, and they're like, I don't want to hire someone to do this. Then we handle all the
Gotcha.
clinical care.
Okay.
It's our entity. There are ways if a provider is trained with an MD or MP and they want to take on the care themselves, we work with providers in that way too. So there's
Yeah.
flexible ways to work together. It really depends on the goals of the business. But ultimately, it's a way to bring this service to more people quickly and do it in a way that's not burdensome to the med spa.
So now, I mean, the question, the $1 million question is how in the hell do you put that together? Like, what's the architecture behind that has got to
Not
be,
easy.
I mean, how long have you been working on this for? Because I mean, I'm thinking of just the amount of, I mean, just the providers you have to have kind of on staff to be able to service this. I mean, what's the infrastructure look like on the back end for you guys?
It's not easy. I just said no one's really done it before. So it's definitely a more complex company and problem that we're trying to solve. But we believe it's super important, and to do it right and do it thoughtfully, you need all the pieces together. I think just doing a test or just doing GLP-1s and that's like your focus of your business. Like we don't think that's the right way to do it behind what the patients and individuals want. And so
Yeah.
we approached it from a challenging way to be able to execute, I will say. But we have a great team and people that are experienced and seasoned in the space, and we work with great clinicians. So we're super excited about it and bring this alive and be able to create access to this type of care that normally is not accessible, both based on price point, but also like where you live. Like if you're not in the fancier higher dense cities, like you're not. It's gonna be hard to get this type of care.
Yeah. So then how does for like med spas that would be interested or a single provider that would be interested in this, how does it work for them as far as price point and payment? Is this a subscription model that they're paying? And then is like how does that work with revenue and how does it benefit the provider of the med spa? What are they able to do to make money off it as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways we work with med spas, kind of depending on how they set up their business, but ultimately
Yeah.
it would drive more revenue to their practice. It would create better retention and engagement by having more services and also drawing in more patients. I think a lot of people want more holistic like care. And I think some clinics are starting to offer a little bit of aesthetics, which is competing a
Yeah.
little bit with the med spas. So it's kind of like offering it or getting left behind to a certain extent. And so I think it also will draw patients in that are wanting to have everything in one roof and be able to do inside and out and kind of holistically approach their care. At the same time, also like med spas, I think the clientele is predominantly women, I would assume, 80,
Yeah,
90% women. But
it is.
longevity is not. Longevity is it's pretty even split in terms of people that are
Yeah.
wanting to optimize their health and care how they look and how they feel as well. But they want to get their weight in check. They want to have better cognition. They want to have better sleep. They don't want to have brain fog. They don't want to feel good, have more energy. And so I think another opportunity, honestly, for med spas is like widening their audience. Like you have an individual that comes to your med spa, like maybe they can bring their husband or their brother or their father who also want to elevate themselves and get to a place where they want to have healthy years of aging and be able to age differently as opposed to going off a more trajectory that might lead to, more illness, more chronic conditions, more joint pain in the future.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, we've all been trying to expand the male aesthetic market for years, and it's continually hovering right around 11%. And it's like,
Okay.
honestly, and it's like I think for the past 15 years, we've all, including myself, we've projected, oh, that's going to grow. It'll be 15, 20%. And it's stayed the same as the market has grown. But I do think what you're saying is accurate. Are you offering as part of your kind of package or your offerings to the med spas, the providers, which is where I'm coming from? Um, do they get any assistance in those types of things? Like if they want to do more marketing to male populations, if they want to so not only are they adding these services, now they've got to market these services. They've got to add language to their website, all these things. Um, what other benefits does the med spa get besides just being able to add them, or do they have to then kind of, okay, I've got these services now, I've got to get to work and figure out how to market it as well?
Yeah, I mean, we want these partnerships to be successful. So we work with them in tandem to be able to get the right message out, help them be
Yeah.
able to talk about it in person and get the right materials that they need from a marketing standpoint. Because, if you can have any service in the world, but no one knows about it, then doesn't do it super well. So
Yeah.
it's part of that, like the onboarding process and making sure they're equipped to be able to do it and making sure it's successful for their business.
Gotcha. All right. Well, so what's I mean, launches, I mean, like I said, it will have happened by the time this,
Yeah,
are you having a big launch party? Are you gonna like rent out the Sphere in Vegas and do something crazy? Or
we
what's the next
should.
step?
No. Well, we're gonna be early access, so taking people want to be very thoughtful about it. So working with
Hmm.
different groups, different patients as they come in. So we'll be kind of early access both on providers and partner side as well as patient side. So yeah, we'll be out there in the live very soon. So if there are any med spas or groups or partners that want to kind of join and work with us, we are currently taking early access partners right now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Where can they, if somebody has an interest in that, where can they find out more information about that program?
Yeah, my website is getpeakhealth.com. So you can go on the website, there'll be a partner page that they can fill out, or they can also just email hello@getpeakhealth, and happy to talk to them and
And
kind of workshop the best way to work together.
we'll have all of these links in our notes. And I think you're also becoming a partner of ours, so we'll have you on our websites.
Yes.
And so that's exciting. Um, I'm just kind of curious, are you still the only employee, or do you have more employees now?
We definitely have more employees. This would not be possible. It's just
I think so.
wonderfully. We have a whole team from product, tech, operations, engineers, you name it, clinicians.
How big are you now?
Um, like we grow every day. We're bigger. I don't have an exact number. And it might
Every day?
change by the time we got when we're live.
Yeah,
But yeah, we're trying to move quickly, and so as part of that, you need the right people to do it. So
that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, I look forward to seeing it. It looks interesting. It's certainly something that our folks are interested in, and I love these startups, and we're starting to see it's such a different, like back when I was starting this, the startups were an RN in an office about the size of what I'm sitting in, which is 200 square feet, and that's all it was. And now we've got well-funded investment and all and smart people like you doing this, and it's really cool. So what do you think of the aesthetic space so far, just kind of being tangentially? I know you're trying to kind of move in it. What are your thoughts?
yeah, I mean, it allowed me to learn a lot more about it. I think
Yeah, are you coming to
yeah,
Medical Spa Show in Vegas in April, which is our big event? You have
oh,
to come.
I okay, yeah, I should
We'll,
come to that. It's
we will
always in
tell.
Vegas. Everything is always in Vegas.
It's definitely in Vegas in April.
Yeah.
We'll get you information, but that's where the whole industry comes together, and you'll see. I mean, it's a very different industry. Like aesthetics is, we have the longevity and the wellness side, and all that's definitely part of it, but aesthetics is where they live.
Yeah. I mean, I think the industry is booming in general and is seeing a lot of people doing preventative aspects.
Mhm.
And I feel like there's a new technology that comes out every day in terms of what can be incorporated in a med spa, whether it's body contouring or certain lasers or rejuvenation or facials or Botox. I think the technology that I've seen come out and it's like the businesses that are growing up I mean, in New York where I live, I think there's a med spa in every corner, and just
Yes, there
wellness
is.
clinic. But what's interesting is they're really not staying in one bucket. I think the ones that are innovative,
Yep.
there's the wellness clinic that has some elements of clinical, but some aesthetics. You have the wellness studios that are the cold plunge sauna things that have an element of IV drip. You have the IV drip lounges. There's
Yep.
blurred lines, but the wellness industry in general is booming. I think healthcare is booming, and ultimately, healthcare is the new like health is a new luxury, and so people are spending money on it and they care about it, and especially post COVID, people want to look good,
Yeah.
feel good, and be in control of their health, which I think historically maybe they weren't before. So I think it's definitely a big shift and where people are
Yeah.
focusing a lot of their energy.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've seen what we've seen really is that you've got a lot of the aesthetic side, the med spa side, they're moving into wellness, longevity, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got a lot of those longevity wellness clinics that are existing that are also trying to kind of move into the aesthetic side, right?
Yeah.
But they're kind of in different lanes. And I think what we're seeing is that it's and I don't know this to be true. We should probably get some data on this. It's maybe easier for an aesthetic clinic if to add somebody who can do longevity because they've got the established patient base. They're a med spa, they do aesthetics. Whereas if you're in longevity, to add an aesthetics piece is maybe not so easy. That's just my thought. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's going to be interesting as time goes on because they are all melding together, and it's definitely going to be kind of one big pot, and we'll see where it ends up.
Yeah. I mean, they're structured differently in terms of the programs or packages. I think there's a
Yeah,
little bit nuance there. I think it also depends on like the owner and the provider. Like if you come from an aesthetic background, but you're also MD
yeah,
and you kind of dabble in both. Like, I think it depends on your comfortable like level and what you can do and what you can bring on. And there's also different capital requirements. You know, a lot of the lasers,
for sure.
I don't know, like they're expensive. I mean, they're not cheap. So like there's a lot of infrastructure to be built for a med spa. And so one of the things I would think about is like how can you capitalize more on that, get more people through the door, get them coming back more than once a year for a facial, because you already invested so much in building out the right demographic and having an in-person clinic, but how do you expand that reach? And that's where I think
Yeah,
Peak can come in to really elevate that and offer more services in a very like cost efficient way, so they don't have to spend more money and hire more people and add all
yeah,
this other stuff. It's a lot of work. And the legal stuff
yeah.
and there's issues and there's compliance and insurance. It's not simple. So and
Yes,
you guys focus a lot on the legal and you're lawyer by trade, so I'm sure you appreciate the complexities that go there.
it is. And just thinking about it gives me a bit of a headache to think of what you guys must be going through because there's a lot that you have to deal with. All right, that's cool. Well, awesome. I mean, best of luck. We'll have to have you back once you guys get going. Peak Health, you said peakhealth.com?
Website, this company's Peak Health. The website is getpeakhealth.com.
Get Peak Health. And that's PEAK.
Correct. Yeah.
Getpeakhealth.com. All right, awesome. Well, Jaclyn, it was great to talk to you. I appreciate it. This is going to be fun to watch. It's cool what you guys have done. We'll see you in Vegas for sure.
Yes. Yes. I'll definitely put that on my calendar. Thanks for having us on and really excited to be working together and
Of course.
helping the med spa community elevate their practice and add longevity.
Can't wait. All right. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you to our producers, Madeline Moeller, Marketing Content Coordinator, who organizes the podcast schedule and guests, provides topics and talking points, and myself, Joe DeGuzman, Technology Operations Manager. I handle the audio and video editing, voiceovers, and tech. Kate Harper, Senior Digital Marketing Coordinator, who makes all of our graphics and manages the podcast platform. Esme Uriastegui, Senior Social Media Coordinator, who makes and posts all the clips for the podcast and posts them to our social feed. Our music is by Ghost Score. Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below. AmSpa is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by AmSpa. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.